Good morning, Americans. This is your favorite alien. Here on the morning of January 6, 2024. And today's commentary is on January 6, specifically January 6, 2021. CNN has been running all kinds of things for the last 3 years, especially this year, 90% related to Donald Trump and insurrection. But what is insurrection? And the Republicans have a point when they say that that was not an insurrection. They do have a point, CNN, and the rest of you extremist leftists. But the extremist rightist Republicans that assume that, that's the election was stolen. They have no grounds to growl. Insurrection. What Donald J. Trump did is, and you quote this guy for all kinds of wrong reasons, Adolf Hitler. There's no relation between Donald J. Trump and Adolf Hitler, except for one. They got the knack, or as you would call it, the tongue, to get people going on their way. You don't believe me? Look at the 1934 Nuremberg rallies that happened. Trump has the same type of charisma that Adolf Hitler had. He doesn't have the tact that Adolf Hitler had, but he has the same type of charisma. Okay? When he did the rally, and when Hitler became chancellor, he knew he had to consolidate his power. So in 1934, he did his rallies at Nuremberg. Attracted a lot of people. And he told the people, wherever you are, to act. Wherever you are, to act. And a lot of those discontented Germans, and there was a lot of those because remember, they have gone through wheelbarrows of money that was worthless. You guys haven't gone through that yet. Can you imagine having $1 million in a wheelbarrow of dollar bills, and you can't take it anywhere because they won't be accepted because they're worth nothing? That's what happened to Germany in 1923. And you can look at videos and you see people with wheelbarrows going all over the place trying to get them to take all that money for a loaf of bread. Okay? You understand me, Americans? And YouTube and Facebook, I am not pro this or anti this. I'm just telling you what the weird insurrection means. Okay? So when Hitler started his campaign after he got in prison in 1923 and wrote Mein Kampf, wow, a lot of people didn't read that. A lot of people today don't understand what Mein Kampf is. And Mein Kampf is a way of thinking, if you look at it, and forget about Hitler and forget about what he stood for, but read Mein Kampf. And you'll understand what I mean. It's an ideology that's been around centuries before. Hey, Nero had the same type of ideology. Genghis Khan had the same type of ideology. Ivan the Terrible had the same type of ideology. And then the British know that Charles I had the same stupid way of thinking, and it cost him his head. Oh, boy. James II tried to do it at a lesser scale, and he had to hightail it out of England, didn't he? Yeah. The Glorious Revolution of 1688. See what I mean, Americans? Insurrection. Now, there's an insurrection that James II started that caused the glorious revolution of 1688. There's no insurrection here with Donald J. Trump. There's just bad policy and violence. You guys haven't been through insurrection. I've been through one when I was a kid. In 1968, my country, Panama, had an insurrection. In that year was an election year, same as today is an election year for both our countries, Panama and the United States. In 1968, Arnulfo Arias was running with the Panaminista Party, which was a Nazi-like party, okay? And Arnulfo Arias was a Nazi guy. But the people loved him, just like they did Adolf Hitler at the start, didn't they? But unlike Adolf Hitler, Arnulfo Arias didn't have a chance. He would win the presidency, and he did it 3 times, people. You hear me, Americans? 3 times he won the presidency. And 3 times he was deposed without finishing his term. One time he was 1.5 years, another time 2 years, and the third time 11 days. He was elected, and his term started on October 1st, 1968, and he was deposed by a military junta on October 11th, 1968. Forever, for the next 20-some years, became Revolutionary Day. Oh yeah, in Panama, observe it more than they did November 3rd's Independence Day. Oh boy. And what came out of that? Well, military dictatorship from 68 to 89 when you finally deposed Noriega, the guy you liked. You didn't like any of the original guys, but you tolerated them. There was a junta made up of 3 guys. And the minor guy was a guy named Torrijos. He was the minor guy in that thing. He was the third guy. Put it this way. When the Soviet Union deposed Khrushchev in 1964, there was 3 guys that assumed power. Leonid Brezhnev, Nikolai Podgorny, and Alexei Kosygin. Okay? Nikolai Podgorny was, well, a little fat. And the third guy on the list, so they put him as a figurehead president. President Nikolai Podgorny. The guys that had the power was mostly Alexei Kosygin and then later on Brezhnev. But Brezhnev originally had less power than Alexei Kosygin. Alexei Kosygin became the, Secretary of State of the Soviet Union, or the, Minister of External Affairs over there. Then it was, he became out of power, Brezhnev got it, and Andrei Gromyko took the part. But you had 3 guys, and that's what happened to Panama. You had 3 guys, a guy named Amado Sanjur, and a guy named Pinilla, and Torrijos, which was a major, by the way. He wasn't a general. But the junta appointed him as General Omar Torrijos. Yeah. He never won any battles to get that title. He just got it, like you get the Prince of Wales or President of the United States in the case of Donald J. Trump. Oh, boy. So you see, Americans, that is insurrection. And in 1969, Omar Torrijos was sent on a delegation tour. He even went to see old Fidel. But he never did like Fidel. Him and Fidel were 2 different type of pals. Unlike Noriega, who liked Cuba. But Torrijos wanted to create a separate movement called the Non-Aligned Movement, and he did, and it's still around today. It was a pain in the neck to the United States, but he also brought Panama out of the backwater. He made the kids study harder. He made them educated. The education and the literacy level in Panama more than quadrupled in the first 10 years of his government. He built schools. He did that. He built highways. He made everything more accessible to the people and the government. He also built military bases. Yeah. And he took over a military base that the United States had built in what they call Rio Alto. That's what he made his big base. Okay? And he had the Panama Canal situation that 4 years earlier, and I'll get to this in a couple days, on January 9th, 1964, a huge riot developed which severed relations between Panama and the United States for 9 months. And officially, 22 people died. Unofficially, that was more than that. Because of the situation about the flags. This is something that you have here in America. But insurrection, Americans. His government, till he died or got assassinated in 1981, made Panama an economic powerhouse. Something it wasn't in 1968. And today, Panama is flexing its muscle with the Canadian company about the copper mine that they control, which will affect you guys if they don't make a situation in here, because your copper is going to go sky high. Panama is one of the few countries that have resources or that you need and you don't have, but they do. Yeah, it's known as economic leverage, people. But here with the insurrection, when it happened in Panama, it happened all over the country, okay, in 1968. Not only did it happen in the capital city, every province and every little town, the police were there, and they took order and made it their thing. That's insurrection. You call it a coup. But there's a difference between a coup and an insurrection. And this was an insurrection. A legitimate elected president got deposed by the military. That's an insurrection. And the people behind it who voted for him didn't stand up to him. The insurrection. The majority of the people stood with the military. And let me give you an example. 20 years later, in 1988, Noriega finally let Arnulfo Arias, which was near his deathbed, come back to his home country from Spain. And he did the same thing that Omar Torrijos had done in 1969. When the other two guys decided to take over the triumvirate and get him out of there, well, they forgot they didn't have the support of the insurrection. He did. He was a people guy. They weren't. They were military. So Torrijos, instead of making an insurrection himself that was bloody and messy like Donald J. Trump tried to do, he landed in David, the capital of my province of Cherokee, and he proceeded to drive 9.5 hours back to the capital of Panama. And as he was going through towns and cities in the area, people were coming behind him. And by the time he got to the Canal Zone border, because he had to cross the border in order to get to the capital city of Panama, and the question was whether the Americans would allow him to cross the border in 1969. of the canal zone, goes through the canal zone to get to Panama. So what he did is, okay, I'll get to the border, but I'll tell my people to stay on this side of the border. But he had a huge people waiting for him on the other side of the border. Okay? The Americans in 1969, under Richard Nixon, granted him permission to cross the border. So he did, with an entourage. Huge, too. It was over 100. It was a big, they crossed over. The Canal Zone police and the military was on either side, and I was watching this on television, people, as Omar Torrijos came through the Panama Canal Zone in the town of Balboa, through it into what we call Avenue A, and straight to the presidential palace, which was occupied by the other two guys, Pinilla and Sanjor. But those guys, as soon as he got permission to cross the border, asked the United States if it could go in the Canal Zone as asylum guys, and then from the Canal Zone they were flown out to countries which they lived out their lives. That is an insurrection, people. 2 in less than a year, 1968 and 69. 1 by the military, 1 by the public. 2 insurrections. Military was still in charge under Omar Torrijos. But the original military that actually deposed the president had gone. And there was a lot of retributions for the people who participated with the other two guys by Omar Torrijos, which you don't see or hear. But he wasn't as deadly as Noriega would have been later on, decades later. Now, Trump did his January 6th on the Capitol, and he misunderstood the American people. Sure, you can attack the Capitol and go over there and get it, but how long can you hold it without having other... What he should have done is just what Torrijos and the other guys did in 1968, which was occupy the entire capital cities of your provinces, in this case your states. That would be an insurrection. That's what they did. He only told the people to go to the Capitol and hold it. But how long can you hold the capital of the United States? It's the most fortified and military capital I know of in the world. Maybe the Kremlin's a little better, but hey. How about the Chinese, over there at the Forbidden City in Peking? Or Beijing, as they call it now. Yeah. But this is the problem, Americans. Insurrection. What is it? Are there going to be people that vote for Donald J. Trump? Oh, you betcha, because I've seen it happen in my home country of Panama when you voted a guy that was as Nazi as Anufo Arias was. But he didn't know how to govern. Same as Donald J. Trump. He doesn't know how to govern. He doesn't know how to be president, where Anufo Arias didn't know that either. And he made so many politics and policy changes that irked a lot of people, and he got deposed. And this is what Donald J. Trump doesn't understand. His brand of politics irks a lot more people than he has. He may win the election, but he still has over 200 million people against him. This is what you got to understand, Americans. Eventually, you'll have an insurrection. You'll have a guy that'll come in because of Donald J. Trump. But not only when he calls for an insurrection, it's not going to be against the U.S. Capitol. It's going to be against the capitals of all the 50 states and the United States Capitol. That is an insurrection that'll work. You've seen a lot of insurrections that use military power. Chile, 1973. Salvador Allende. They bombed the hell out of the presidential palace. But nobody was there to save him because he didn't have any guys in the military that was his side. Same with Fanufo Arias. He didn't have any guys in the military that wanted to save him. So he ended up going to Spain, with the United States providing the transportation and the safe conduct out of the country. It's another thing you got to understand. You have interfered in other people's affairs, and now they're interfering in yours. Isn't that crazy, Americans? Understand the word insurrection and what it means before you vote Donald J. Trump back into power. And I'm not a Donald J. Trump hater. I'm not a supporter. I'm not a Biden hater, and I'm not a Biden supporter. I'm a third-party person from another planet telling you what it is that you have to understand to govern. And you guys don't understand what it is to be governed. This is your favorite alien. Good day.